Look, a new book. The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin from 1969. According to Newsweek, this is a science fiction masterpiece. Ooh. And this did actually win 2 awards, the Nebula and the Hugo, which are 2 of the most prominent awards in science fiction. Oh, this is the first thing I've read by Ursula K. Le Guin, by the way, who's still alive. And I believe still actively producing fiction, non-fiction, both. And yeah, that's my understanding. But this is part of some larger story cycle, but I guess they're not very tightly connected. They're very loosely connected. Yeah, but this is the first thing I've read by her. I enjoyed it overall, for the most part. Yeah, it didn't feel like 1969. It felt like almost like it could have been written today. There's this really strong sense of culture in the book. There's a few alien cultures in it, or kind of an alien planet, and different cultures on the planet, but they're really fleshed out in a way that you don't see in a lot of science fiction. A lot of science fiction tends to treat aliens as basically there's humanity, which has one culture, which is not the case at all. And then there's, alien cultures, which are all different from humanity. Whereas this is, even though it's just one planet, there's a lot of differentiation among the cultures on that planet. I believe Mrs. Le Guin has some background in anthropology, either herself or her mother. That was my understanding, and it shows up very strongly. Like she doesn't just show cultures and how they're like that, how they're different. She shows kind of how they became like that and why they're different. And even underneath all these different types of culture, she's still able to communicate how, even though they're aliens, they're very similar to humanity. They have a common sense of humanity. Also, I have this, she talks a little about, I guess, humanity spread to other cultures, or I can't really remember, or if humanity was one of those cultures. That's like the larger cycle that this story is in, that humans are actually related. That's why if we go to other planets, they'll look like us, because we've all been spored kind of by the same parent culture. She uses really simple language, and it's not like you're not going to be like, oh, that image is, well, maybe a few times, but it's not through the language itself. She just has a really broad sense of ideas. That's what I think her strength is. She's just sees things in such a wide vision. A lot of science fiction, we may not really get a good picture of the entire social structure of humanity at that stage of the future, if it's in the future. But she does that very well. She also handles different perspectives really well. Like there's some sections are written actually from different characters' points of view. Some of things are just kind of like legends that she kind of throws in to spice up the kind of understanding of this culture she's talking about, or the different cultures. And yeah, she even every time a point of view switches, it's not like you're like, what's going on? Maybe for like a page, and then you get it, and then you go back and you read it, and it makes sense. It's never super confusing. This isn't Ulysses. There are a lot of themes in this book, but I think the one that stands out to me the most is her contemplation of gender and sexuality. And because this alien species, and I'm not giving anything away, I'm trying to keep these fiction reviews largely spoiler free, but in the beginning she pretty much spells this out from the first chapter, that this alien culture doesn't have differentiation of male and female. They're all kind of basically the same gender until they are ready to mate, and then they select either playing a male or female part. She explains it very well. And I think for 1969, this was like the perfect time for this book to come out, because all these issues of gender were really coming up in the post flower power generation, and all these different issues that she talks about, or she doesn't really talk about it in relation to humans, but by putting us in this culture where things are so different, it kind of forces us to think about these issues, how gender affects identity and what that means. I also liked how there was this character who is kind of a representative for this international kind of federation of planets, who goes to this planet alone and is basically giving up years and years of his life to kind of accomplish this mission. I won't explain what the mission is, but it's she carries the weight of what that means. It's not like some flippant choice. It actually feels like this character has gone to this planet, committed his life to this kind of higher purpose of serving the the global Federation community or whatever. So it's like, it's almost like a religious mission that he's on. I mean, it is called his mission, so I think there's kind of that religious parallel to it. She has a large section of the book devoted to this long journey, and as I read it, I was like, wow, this is going on, and it was a little tedious at the time. Well, not tedious, but it was just a little too much. Like, she could have glossed it over and just like zoomed in, said like, these characters traveled for this weeks and weeks or whatever, and like, but she chose to, I think she spent at least 50 pages on the journey, and it's like, wow, did we need that much? I guess it kind of shows the travel that is going on. And at the time I thought it was too much, but thinking back on it now, it's actually one of the most memorable images and parts of the book. So I think maybe I would enjoy it more now that I've seen the whole kind of framework of the book. I could see myself rereading this in a few years and actually enjoying that section a lot more. Some of the names in the book are kind of annoying. It's kind of like this fantasy cliche thing where you have to come up with these weirdy sounding names, and it's like, okay, we get it, but it was okay. I got through that part. So did this deserve the Hugo and the Nebula Award? I don't know, I'm still digesting it, and I want to read more of her books to kind of get a better grasp of how her mind works. She definitely does kind of impress me. Like, the book it's like it's continual opening of ideas, and it's like some science fiction authors, they'll introduce their universe and their ideas, and then the story will kind of carry on as a regular narrative with the issues of climax and resolution, etc. But this book, I feel, it's like one big laying out of the map of this whole society. So I enjoyed it. I was like constantly growing, and my ideas about it, the universe, and what these characters were doing was constantly changing. She's not like really a funny writer. She's not, I wouldn't say she's like there's not a lot of big surprises. It's just like things happen in a very kind of fluid manner. But yeah, there's definitely not a lot of suspense, I guess. I don't know if that's the word to use, because like a lot of times I just didn't even know what was possible in this world and by the rules that she'd set up. So like, I enjoyed it, but it didn't have like the it has a fast pace for the most part, but it's not Edgar Rice Burroughs. Definitely, it's something else. So I guess I'm recommending it. I think I'm gonna read more of her, and maybe I'll have something else that's a little more a better place to start. But I mean, this is like one of her most famous books, so I think I enjoyed it. If you are hardcore about science fiction, definitely read it. 60s, 70s science fiction, all the kind of the new wave themes that were emerging, and it looks at kind of what's happening in the culture at the time in the 60s and the 70s, and uses science fiction as a way to do that. And I think that's it definitely does seem still relevant and modern, but of its time in another way. So yeah, give it a look. The Left Hand of Darkness. I think I'll have this Batman book soon to review for you soon.